The digital departure board flickered, a hypnotic dance of cities and times that seemed to mock my stationary feet. The air in the terminal was a stale cocktail of antiseptic cleaner, anxiety and faint perfume. Amidst the river of rolling suitcases and hurried goodbyes, I was an island, anchored by the man who held me. Liam Croft, a solid 1.85 meters of warmth and muscle, was wrapped around me like a protective blanket, his head buried in the crook of my neck. He was oblivious to the chaotic symphony of the departure hall, his world narrowed down to just us. "I really wish I could go with you, Alara," he murmured, his voice a low rumble against my skin. My heart, a tender, vulnerable thing, softened at his words. I reached up, my fingers threading through his thick, dark hair. "It's just a last-minute work conference, Liam. Barely a blip. I'll be back before you even have time to miss me. We can go get our marriage license the day I get back." He pulled back slightly, his hazel eyes clouded with a guilt that seemed disproportionate to the situation. "Stay a few more days if you can. I booked the hotel for the whole week. There's an art exhibition opening at the Mori Museum in a couple of days. That sculptor you're obsessed with. And I've made a list of restaurants. You can be my scout. Try them first, then take me when we go back for our honeymoon." I smiled, a genuine loving thing. This was Liam. Thoughtful, generous, always putting my passions first. "You're too good to me." We had met 3 years ago, a setup orchestrated by my well-meaning Aunt Lydia. I'd walked into that coffee shop expecting another awkward hour of stilted conversation. That I found Liam. The connection was instantaneous and easy, a key sliding into a lock I hadn't known was closed. Our wedding was scheduled for 2 weeks from today. While other couples were drowning in seating charts and cake tastings, mine had booked us a trip to Tokyo because my favorite artist's exhibition was ending soon. "The wedding photos can wait," he'd said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Your happiness can't. I originally planned for us to go together during the honeymoon," he'd explained, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "But the exhibition ends next month. Alara, even after you marry me, I never want you to stop being the woman who loves art and adventure." I love that woman. The final boarding call for my flight echoed through the hall, a harsh, impersonal sound that shattered our little bubble. I dragged my feet, stealing one last kiss, one last embrace, imprinting the feel of him, the scent of his cologne, clean linen and sandalwood, into my memory. As I walked down the jet bridge, a fleeting thought, cold and sharp, pricked at the edges of my contentment. He's almost too perfect. I shook it off, chastising myself for my foolishness. I was the luckiest woman alive. The 5 days in Tokyo were a whirlwind. The conference was productive, but my free time was dedicated to the exhibition. It was breathtaking. I sent Liam a barrage of photos, sweeping sculptures, intricate installations, the vibrant Tokyo streets at night. He replied promptly, every time with the right amount of enthusiasm and longing. "Stunning. Wish I were there with you. Can't wait to see it through your eyes when we go back." His messages were a warm, constant presence, a digital tether across the miles. I decided to cut my trip short. The conference ended a day early and a fierce, sudden longing for Liam seized me. I wanted to surprise him. I booked the last flight out, my stomach fluttering with anticipation. I could picture his face, the shock melting into that brilliant, dimpled smile. I'd land in the morning, just in time to show up at our apartment with coffee and pastries. It was as the plane began its descent, the first lights of my city glittering like scattered diamonds below, that my phone connected to the aircraft's Wi-Fi and buzzed with a series of frantic messages. They were from my best friend, Chloe. "Alara, are you in the air? Call me the second you land. Do not call Liam first. It's important. Just, please call me." A cold knot of dread began to form in my stomach, tight and heavy. The anticipation that had felt so light and joyful now curdled into something acidic. What could possibly be so urgent? Had something happened to her? To my family? The plane touched down with a screech of tires, the reverse thrusters roaring. The moment the seatbelt sign dinged off, I was on my feet, my carry-on bag feeling like a lead weight. I powered on my phone fully, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't call. I texted. "Landed. What's wrong?" Her reply was instantaneous. "Wait at arrivals. I'm coming to get you. Do not leave. Do not call him." The knot in my stomach pulled tighter. I navigated the airport in a daze. the joyful homecoming of other passengers a stark contrast to the cold fear slithering down my spine. I saw Chloe before she saw me. She was pacing near the exit, her face pale, her usually impeccable ponytail slightly askew. When her eyes found mine, the look in them, a terrifying mix of panic, anger, and pity, made my blood run cold. She rushed over and pulled me into a tight, almost desperate hug. "Chloe, what is it? You're scaring me." She pulled back, her hands on my shoulders. "I need you to promise me you'll stay calm. I need you to breathe. Just tell me." She took a deep, shuddering breath and handed me her phone. A video was already queued up. I was having dinner with my family at the Grand Imperial last night, and I saw something. I recorded it because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I took the phone, my hand trembling. I pressed play. The video was shaky at first, then focused. It was a wedding reception. The ballroom was decorated in tasteful shades of ivory and gold, my colors. The theme was Art Deco, my theme. And there, standing under the archway of white orchids, my flower, was Liam. My Liam. He was wearing the custom Tom Ford tuxedo I had helped him pick out. On his finger was the platinum wedding band we had chosen together. He was smiling down at the woman beside him, and the dimple in his left cheek, the one I loved so much, was on full display. The woman was thin, almost frail-looking, with sallow skin. And she was wearing my wedding dress. The delicate, lace-inscribed Oscar de la Renta gown that was hanging in a garment bag in my closet. The gown I was supposed to wear in 2 weeks. The camera panned to a large poster beside the entrance to the ballroom. Liam Croft and Zoe Voss. Congratulations on your union. The world tilted on its axis. The sounds of the airport, the announcements, the chatter, the rolling luggage, faded into a dull, high-pitched whine. I couldn't breathe. My lungs refused to work. This wasn't real. It was a prank, a nightmare, a horrible mistake. Alara? Alara, say something. Chloe's voice sounded like it was coming from the end of a long tunnel. I stared at the screen, my mind screaming in denial. This was my gentle, considerate Liam. The man who sent me abroad to see an art exhibition. The man who had just been texting me about missing me. Then the video showed the ring exchange. The groom, Liam, pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and then slipped the ring onto Zoe Voss's finger. Based on the timestamp Chloe had overlaid, the moment he checked his phone was the exact moment I had been sending him a dozen pictures of a sculpture garden, gushing about how much he would love it. He had taken time during his wedding to another woman to reply to my messages. A master of time management. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Chloe caught it just in time. I looked at her, my vision blurring with hot, disbelieving tears. My mouth opened but no sound came out. The perfect goodbye at the airport, his guilty insistence I stay longer, the constant texts. It all crystallized into a horrifying, premeditated plan. He had sent me away so he could marry someone else. The foundation of my world, the future I had built so carefully with him over 3 years, shattered into a million pieces right there on the cold linoleum floor of the airport arrivals hall. The car ride was a silent, nightmarish blur. City lights streaked past the window, smearing into meaningless ribbons of color. I sat in the passenger seat of Chloe's SUV, numb, the video playing on a loop behind my eyes. Liam's smile. My dress. My ring. My wedding venue. Chloe kept glancing at me, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I'm so sorry, Alara. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. But I thought if you saw it for yourself." "You did the right thing," I whispered, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar. It was the first thing I'd managed to say since the airport. "If you'd just told me, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have thought it was a misunderstanding. I would have called him." The thought made me sick. I would have called my fiancé, full of excitement to surprise him, only to have him lie to my face, to spin some story while standing in the ruins of our relationship. "What are you going to do?" Chloe asked, her tone. What was I going to do? My mind was a tangled, frantic mess. One moment, a fierce, burning rage would flare up, so intense I thought I might scream. The next, a cold, hollow grief would swallow it whole, leaving me empty and shaking. Part of me was still convinced it was an elaborate, terrible joke. Another part, the part that had seen the look on his face in that video, a look of genuine, unforced affection, knew it was devastatingly real. "I need to see him," I heard myself say. "I need to look him in the eye and hear him say it." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Right now. You're in shock. I need to, I insisted, a stubbornness born of sheer survival instinct taking hold. I need to go home. Our home. Chloe sighed but didn't argue. She changed course, heading toward the apartment Liam and I had shared for the past 2 years. The place was full of us. Photos from our trips, books we read together, the ugly ceramic vase he'd made me in a pottery class that I cherished precisely because it was so awful. We pulled up outside our building. The lights in our living room were off. A stupid, fragile hope sparked in my chest. Maybe he wasn't there. Maybe it was all a horrible dream and I would wake up. But as we walked to the door, my keys felt like ice in my hand. I pushed the door open. The apartment was dark and still. It smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. Liam must have cleaned just like he'd said he would in his texts. Everything was in its place. The throw pillows fluffed, the coffee table wiped down. It looked like the home of a man who was patiently waiting for his fiancée to return. He wasn't there. The anger I had been clutching onto during the drive suddenly had nowhere to go. It evaporated, leaving behind a crushing, debilitating emptiness. I slumped onto the sofa, my body heavy and useless. Chloe paced the room, a whirlwind of nervous energy in the quiet space. After a few laps, she suddenly stopped and crouched in front of me, her face etched with a hesitant dread. Alara, could he? Is it possible he's at the new house? The words landed like a physical blow. The new house. Our new house. The one we'd bought together, the down payment split between our savings. The one that was supposed to be our forever home where we'd raise a family. We'd been slowly furnishing it but hadn't moved in yet. We were waiting until after the wedding. The image of Liam in that house, our marital home with her, that sallow woman in my nightgown, blinded me. My vision swam, dark spots dancing at the edges. I felt Chloe's hands on my shoulders, heard her panicked voice as if from a great distance. Alara. Alara, breathe. Look at me. I was just guessing, don't listen to me. I'm an idiot. She scrambled to the kitchen and returned with a bottle of ice-cold water, pressing it against my forehead and the back of my neck. The shock of the cold brought me back slightly. I saw the sheer terror on her face, the tears streaking her own cheeks, and a wave of guilt washed over me. She was trying to help and I was falling apart. I'm sorry, I choked out. I'm so sorry, Chloe. Don't you dare apologize, she said fiercely, hugging me. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. It took me a long time to find my bearings. The numbness was gone, replaced by a clear, sharp, and terrifyingly cold resolve. I stood up, my legs still shaky but determined. I walked to the desk in the corner and rummaged through a drawer, pulling out a small handheld camcorder we used to film silly birthday messages for friends. I shoved it into Chloe's hands. Come on, I said, my voice flat and steady. Let's go give my fiancé a surprise. The plan formed in my mind, fully realized. He wanted to play a game. He wanted to live a double life. Fine. But he wasn't the only one who could orchestrate a spectacle. I picked up my phone. I didn't call Liam. I called our friends. Hey Maya. Guess what? I'm back early. I know, right? Listen, I'm planning a huge surprise for Liam at the new house. Yes, to propose to him. I know he deserves it after being so supportive. Can you come? Bring some champagne. I repeated the same story, my voice dripping with faux excitement, to Ben, to Sarah, to Mark. They were all thrilled, completely taken in by the story of the perfect couple. Their excitement was a knife twisting in my gut, but it was also fuel. Their outrage would be my weapon. Within an hour we were a convoy of cars heading to the new house. My friends, bubbly and oblivious, were in the backseat of Chloe's car, talking about how romantic this was, how Liam was the luckiest guy alive. He absolutely adores you, Maya gushed. I ran into him last week getting your ring resized. He said you'd been so busy with wedding planning you'd lost weight and he wanted it to be perfect. Every word was a fresh cut. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and forced a smile. Yes, I said, my voice thick. Liam is wonderful. That's why I have to do this. I need to show him how I feel. Chloe, in the driver's seat, shot me a worried glance. I met her eyes in the rearview mirror and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. The camera was on her lap, ready. By the time we arrived at the new suburban development, a few other friends had shown up, armed with party poppers, bouquets, and bottles of champagne, caught up in the whirlwind of the romantic surprise. They thought they were helping me create a perfect moment. They had no idea they were my audience and my witnesses. Holding the empty ring box I'd brought as a prop, my heart ached with a bitterness so profound it was a physical pain. But thanks to their joyful energy, Chloe, hovering at the back with the camera, no longer looked out of place. "Shoo, shoo, everyone quiet," Ben whispered dramatically as we all crowded around the front door of my house. The joy and delight in their eyes were a stark contrast to the ice in my veins. I exchanged one last, resolute glance with Chloe. Then I pressed my finger to the biometric lock. The door clicked open. "Liam baby. Come quick. Come accept Alara's love," my friends yelled, pushing me inside and setting off the party poppers with a series of loud, celebratory bangs. Confetti filled the air, a colorful, joyful storm. And as it slowly settled, it revealed the scene inside. The furniture was ours. The art on the walls was ours. But standing in the middle of the living room, frozen in shock, wearing my silk nightgown, was the thin, sallow woman from the video. Zoe Voss. The room fell silent. The last of the confetti fluttered to the ground. "Who are you?" Maya finally asked, her voice laced with confusion and dawning anger. "What are you doing here? Where's Liam?" The woman, Zoe, recovered from her shock quickly. Instead of shame or embarrassment, her face twisted into a mask of defensive indignation. "Who are you?" she shot back, her voice shrill. "This is Liam's house. You're trespassing. Get out right now or I'll call the police." Her audacity was breathtaking. My friends, finally realizing something was terribly wrong, moved instinctively, forming a protective circle around me. "Why are you wearing Alara's clothes?" Chloe's voice was calm and deadly as she stepped forward, the camera held steady. "Who exactly are you?" "I don't know any Alara." Zoe shrieked. "Liam told me to stay here. Now get out." "Go ahead and call the police," Chloe said, her voice never wavering. "Alara paid for half of this house. Her name is on the deed. Let's see who they take away." Before Zoe could retort, a voice came from the doorway. What's going on here?" Liam stood there holding a bag of takeout food, his face a perfect portrait of stunned confusion. His arrival sucked all the sound from the room. In a flash of pink silk, Zoe transformed. The shrieking harridan vanished. She ran to him, crumpling against his chest, her body trembling. "Liam, they're so scary, they just burst in." Her voice was now a pathetic, trembling whimper. Liam's eyes scanned the room, landing on me, on my friends, on Chloe with the camera. His expression shifted through a rapid series of emotions. Shock, panic, and finally, a desperate, calculated calm. "Alara. You're back," he said, his voice overly bright. "Let me explain. This is a misunderstanding. A complete misunderstanding." I fought back the tears of rage and betrayal, forcing myself to step forward. My voice, when it came out, was colder than I thought possible. "Fine, Liam. I'm listening. Explain what kind of misunderstanding this is." Liam's eyes darted around the room, looking at the faces of our friends, my friends, who were now staring at him with a mixture of confusion, suspicion, and dawning horror. He looked like a cornered animal, desperately searching for an escape route that didn't exist. The woman in his arms, Zoe, let out another pathetic, shuddering cough, burying her face deeper into his shirt. He reached a hand out toward me, a gesture that was probably meant to be placating, but flinched back when Zoe whimpered again. The priority was clear. "Alara, please," he began, his voice taking on a patronizing, reasonable tone that made my skin crawl. "This is Zoe. She's an old friend from high school. She's sick, Alara. Really sick. She doesn't know anyone else in the city, so I let her stay here for a few days. You're the most understanding person I know. You wouldn't mind helping someone in need, right?" He said it so smoothly, so confidently, as if this were a perfectly logical explanation. As if finding another woman wearing my clothes in the home I owned was a minor social faux pas. He was trying to frame the narrative, to paint me as the unreasonable one if I objected. "What illness does she have?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion that was raging inside me, "that requires her to stay in our marital home? If she's short on money, we can rent her a place. We can help her set up a fundraiser. There are options, Liam." "Alara," he erupted, his patience snapping. The mask of the reasonable man slipped, revealing a flash of genuine anger beneath. "Zoe has cancer. She has maybe 3 months left. How could you be so cruel? Think about what you're saying." He was accusing me of being cruel. The audacity was so staggering it stole my breath for a second. Hot tears of pure fury finally spilled down my cheeks. But instead of the remorse he expected, they fueled my resolve. "So," I said, taking a step closer, my eyes locked on his, "you want her to die in our new home? What exactly is your relationship with her, Liam?" Liam stared wide-eyed, his mouth opening and closing without sound. It was Zoe who answered. She lifted her head from his chest, her eyes wide and pleading, though I saw a flicker of triumph deep within them. "Liam is my first love," she said, her voice a trembling, breathy whisper. "I don't mean anything by it. I just want to spend my final days near him." "Blair, is it? I beg you, please let me have this one wish." The room went dead silent. The air was thick with tension and secondhand embarrassment. Even Maya, who had been ready to verbally eviscerate Zoe moments before, looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight and avoiding my eyes. I understood. It's hard to rage against a dying woman. The social script demands pity, not confrontation. A part of me, the part that had loved Liam for 3 years, the part that was kind and empathetic, wanted to back down. If he had come to me, if he had been honest from the beginning, maybe I would have been horrified and heartbroken, but I might have understood. I might have even helped. But he hadn't. He had lied. He had schemed. He had married her. I closed my eyes, took a deep, shuddering breath that felt like it was tearing my soul in two, and stepped forward one last time. "I'll ask you one last time, Liam. What is your relationship with her?" "Elara, I don't understand how you've become so cold and calculating," he deflected, his voice dripping with false heartbreak. "Zoe is in unimaginable pain and you're obsessed with labels and relationships? Where is your compassion?" It was then that a new voice cut through the tension, clear, loud, and dripping with disdain. "Groom Liam Croft, do you take Zoe Voss to be your wife? For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health?" Every head in the room swiveled toward the sound. Chloe stood there, her phone held aloft, the wedding video playing for everyone to see. And in her other hand she held up 2 small, glaringly red booklets. "Marriage certificates." "I do." Liam's recorded voice echoed tinny from the phone speaker. Chloe's eyes were locked on Liam, her expression one of pure contempt. "Mr. Croft, you were engaged to Elara. Yet here you are on video pledging yourself to your first love. Are you attempting marriage fraud, or is this just straightforward bigamy?" The effect was electric. The uncomfortable pity in the room evaporated, replaced by unified, gasping outrage. "Liam is already married?" Ben exploded. "Holy shit. When did this happen? That woman is wearing Elara's wedding dress. The host is the one I recommended to Elara. Wasn't this the wedding venue she chose? I went with her to look at it. The dam broke. My friends, my wonderful loyal friends, turned on him. The pieces fell into place for them all at once. A wedding is planned by both people." Maya shouted, her earlier discomfort gone, replaced by protective fury. "But Liam, you were so busy with work. You said, whatever Elara wants is fine. She dragged us to every consultation. She picked the wedding dress, the venue, the flowers. And you let her. You let her plan her own replacement. Liam, even if you wanted to fulfill your first love's dying wish," Ben added, his voice shaking with anger, "did you have to use everything Elara worked for? Did you have to trample all over her like this? You kept your marriage a secret from all of us." Sarah cried. "Were you just going to wait for her to die and then come back to Elara like nothing happened? You're disgusting." The more they spoke, the paler Liam became. His aggressive, defensive posture crumpled. He looked small and trapped, his eyes darting wildly around the room at the circle of accusing faces. No, it's not like that," he stammered, his voice losing all its earlier confidence. "Elara, please just listen to me. Zoe's condition, it couldn't wait. She just wanted a wedding. A ceremony. I'll give you a new one later, I promise. A better one. Zoe, for God's sake, say something." He frantically pulled the woman in his arms forward, signaling her with his eyes. "Tell them. The marriage certificate isn't real. It's just for show." But Zoe Voss did not follow his script. She looked up at him, her lower lip trembling, and delivered her lines with the skill of a seasoned actress. "Liam, if you didn't want to really marry me, you could have refused to get the certificate with me yesterday. I may be dying," she said, her voice breaking beautifully, But I want your love, not your pity. No. That's not it. Liam tried to argue, but it was too late. Mark had already snatched one of the certificates from Chloe's hand, scanning the QR code on the side with his phone. It's real, he announced, his voice grim. Issued yesterday by the city clerk's office. Near here, actually. Liam's face turned the color of ash. His lips moved soundlessly several times before he finally looked at me, his eyes pleading, desperate. Zoe really won't live past 3 months. I just wanted to help her fulfill her final wish. You wouldn't mind, right? The question was so profoundly stupid, so utterly delusional, that it finally broke the last vestige of my heart. He had deceived me, married another woman, and he still expected my understanding. He still expected me to wait. I looked at the man I thought I knew, the man I had planned a future with, and I felt nothing but a cold, vast disappointment. We're done here, Liam. I don't agree, he yelled, and in a move that defied all logic while still holding Zoe, he reached out and grabbed my wrist. Alara, it's you I love. I'm just doing this for Zoe. Wait for me. Please just wait for me. The spell was broken. My friends surged forward. Get your hands off her, you piece of shit. Ben roared, pulling Liam's arm away from me. I never knew you could be so shameless. Maya screamed. If you want to play devoted saint to your dying first love, then do it. But don't you dare drag Alara into your disgusting mess. You're not devoted, you're a coward. If you had an ounce of decency, you would have been honest. You've wronged Alara and you've lied to every single one of us. Liam's eyes were wide and bloodshot. The verbal lashing from his former friends left him unable to speak, but his gaze was still locked on me, desperately calling my name as they pushed him back. Liam, I said, my voice quiet but cutting through the noise. Stop. It's over. I shook my head. Forgiving him would be a betrayal of myself and of the people who had stood by me. I can't bring myself to wish you well. Just return the money I fronted for the wedding, the banquet deposits, and my half of the down payment on this house. I turned my back on him, on Zoe, on the ruins of my future in that house, and walked out the door. My friends followed me, a protective phalanx, leaving Liam standing in the wreckage of his own making, still holding another woman in the home he had shared with me. The silence in Chloe's car was heavier on the return journey, thick with the aftermath of the explosive confrontation. The initial wave of adrenaline had receded, leaving behind a hollow, aching exhaustion. I stared out the window, not seeing the city lights, only seeing Liam's pleading, desperate face superimposed over the glass. My friends were quiet, the festive champagne and party poppers feeling like artifacts from a different lifetime. The weight of what they had witnessed settled over them. Chloe was the first to speak, her voice gentle. I know a place. Let's get some food. You need to eat. We all do. No one argued. She drove us to a quiet, unassuming Italian restaurant she knew was open late. The dim lighting and warm, garlic-scented air felt like a sanctuary. We slid into a large, secluded booth, the red vinyl seats sighing under our weight. A waiter came over, his cheerful demeanor faltering when he took in our somber, shell-shocked faces. We ordered mechanically, barely looking at the menus. Once he was gone, the dam broke again, but this time it was a flood of support, not outrage. I can't believe it, Maya whispered, shaking her head. I think I'm still in shock. He seems so normal. So in love with you. He's lost his mind, Ben stated firmly, pounding his fist softly on the table. Completely and utterly lost it. It's a good thing you brought us along, Alara. Who knows what he might have done if it was just you and Chloe. That woman, Sarah added, shuddering, there's something not right about her either. The way she switched from screaming to crying, it was terrifying. If she tried to fake an injury or accuse you of something. Their words washed over me, each one a small balm on the raw, gaping wound Liam had left behind. I had been braced for judgment, for awkwardness, for the inevitable, I told you so, that sometimes follows a bad relationship. Instead, I was met with unwavering loyalty and fierce protection. Ivy. I'm so sorry, I said, my voice cracking. I used you all. I brought you there under false pretenses. I'm so sorry. Maya reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Don't you dare apologize. You were brilliant. You needed witnesses and we were happy to be them. I'm just glad we were there for you. Exactly, Ben chimed in. A blessed woman doesn't enter an unlucky household. Finding out what kind of man he is before the wedding is actually a good thing. You dodged a nuclear missile, Alara. Thank you, I whispered, the words inadequate. Thank you all. I had held it together through the confrontation, but now, surrounded by their comfort and kindness, the tears I had been suppressing finally broke free. I cried, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the future I lost, for the man I thought I knew, for the profound and utter betrayal. I was crying so hard I started hiccuping, drawing concerned looks from the waitstaff. Chloe calmly waved one over. It's all right, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. We're celebrating her getting rid of a scumbag. The waiter, to his credit, didn't miss a beat. He nodded solemnly and disappeared. To our utter astonishment, he returned a few minutes later with a small cake, a single candle flickering in the center. Written in elegant frosting were the words, "Celebrating the beauty's rebirth." The entire restaurant staff, following behind him, broke into a soft, smiling rendition of, "For she's a jolly good fellow." It was absurd. It was ridiculous. It was the most perfect thing that could have happened. And for the first time that night, a real, genuine smile broke through my tears. The ice around my heart cracked. I was surrounded by love. I was going to be okay. The following days were a blur of practicalities. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Liam and into Chloe's spare room. I went to my company's HR and front desk, explaining the situation with a clinical detachment that surprised me, providing them with a photo of Liam and instructing them he was not to be allowed under any circumstances. My boss, a formidable woman in her 50s, simply nodded, said, "Men are trash, darling," and promised security would be on alert. I thought I had made myself perfectly clear to Liam at the house. But his messages started pouring in. Long, rambling, self-pitying texts that showed a breathtaking lack of self-awareness. "Zoe's treatment is so expensive, I don't know what to do. Taking care of a sick person is so draining, you have no idea. You used to be so gentle and understanding, Alara. Where did that woman go? I miss your cooking. Could you bring some of that soup you make to the hospital?" He was living in a complete fantasy. He expected me to feel sorry for him, to support him emotionally, even to cater to him while he was married to another woman. Every delusional word solidified my resolve. I screenshot every message and posted them in the group chat with my friends. Maya's response was immediate and sharp. The audacity of this man. He's living in a dream world. No matter what he texted, no matter how he tried to guilt-trip me, my reply was always the same two words: pay me. He tried to ambush me at work, but security turned him away. He loitered outside Chloe's building, but she handled all our commuting, herding me in and out of the garage like a Secret Service agent. Frustrated, his texts turned from self-pity to negotiation. "Meet me once. Just talk to me. I'll pay you back everything after we talk." I discussed it with Chloe and my parents, who were now fully briefed and burning with a quiet, furious anger on my behalf. After 2 days of thought, I agreed. It was time to end this once and for all. We met at the coffee shop where we'd had our first date. The irony was not lost on me. He was already there, sitting in our usual spot by the window. He looked tired, older, the charming facade beginning to crack under the stress. "Alara," he said, a painfully familiar affectionate tone in his voice. He pushed a plate toward me. "The sea salt caramel macarons you love. I just got them." I didn't sit. I didn't even look at the pastries. My expression was a mask of ice. He flinched at my coldness and quickly tried to call a waiter over. "I didn't order your coffee yet, I was afraid it would get cold." "No need," I interrupted, my voice flat. I dismissed the waiter and placed a neatly itemized bill on the table between us. 3 years together was a mutual choice. Let's part with what's left of our dignity. This settles it. His face darkened. "I don't agree." He snatched the paper and tore it in two with a violent jerk. "I won't accept a breakup, Alara. Don't listen to their poison. You still love me. I know you do. And I only love you. Just wait for me. I'll give you a home, I promise." I calmly pulled another copy of the bill from my bag. "It's fine. I've printed plenty. Take your time. If you don't want to be civil, we can always let a judge decide." He stared at me, a new, calculating look entering his eyes. Then he scoffed and placed a small plastic object on top of the new bill. It was a positive pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. "Stop pretending, Alara," he said, a smug, triumphant smile spreading across his face. You're carrying my child. How could you possibly leave me? I was utterly stunned into silence. My mind went completely blank. I picked up the test, my hands trembling. How? He leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescending certainty. I found this at the apartment. In the bathroom trash. You wouldn't want our child to grow up without a father, would you? Once all this with Zoe is over, we'll be a family. The sheer audacity of it, the monumental arrogance, was like a bucket of cold water. It snapped me out of my shock. He had rummaged through my private trash. He had found this. Who knows what it was from, a false positive, an old test. And he saw it not as a concern but as a tool. A leash to bring me back to heel. I placed the test back on the table with deliberate slowness. I looked him directly in the eye, my gaze unwavering. I'm not pregnant, Liam. My voice was low and deadly calm. The child you need to take responsibility for isn't mine. His smug smile faltered. What? Don't be ridiculous. It was in our apartment. If it's not yours, then whose is it? I held his gaze, letting the silence stretch, letting him sit in the discomfort of his own assumption. Whose do you think it is? I finally said, my words laced with a venom I didn't know I possessed. I watched as the realization dawned on his face. The memory of Zoe living in our apartment, using our bathroom. The color drained from his cheeks. His mouth fell open. Before he could form a word, I picked up the glass of ice water the waiter had left for him and flung it directly into his face. We'll settle this in court, Liam. I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving him sputtering and dripping, the ruined bill and the positive pregnancy test sitting between us like the relics of a dead world. I had just stepped out onto the sidewalk, my heart hammering, trying to spot Chloe's car, when a figure stepped out from the shadow of the building, blocking my path. It was Zoe Voss. She was pale and looked even thinner than before, but her eyes burned with a fierce intensity. Miss Alara, she said, her voice a harsh whisper. We need to talk. I took an involuntary step back, my fight-or-flight instinct screaming. Zoe Voss looked like a vengeful ghost, her sallow skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Before I could even form a response, Chloe was there, stepping between us, her phone already raised and recording. Take another step, Chloe said, her voice low and dangerous. I dare you. This is all being recorded. If you so much as fake a stumble, I'm calling the police. Zoe's eyes, fixed on me, flickered with pure hatred before she seemed to remember her part. Her shoulders slumped and a single perfect tear traced a path down her cheek. She let her legs buckle, slumping to the grimy sidewalk in a dramatic heap. Miss Alara, I beg you, she sobbed, her voice a pathetic wail that drew stares from passing pedestrians. You have your health, you have your friends, you have a good job. You can find love again. But I have nothing. Nothing. Please don't meet with Liam anymore. This is my only wish. I just want to spend my final days with him in peace. Her performance was Oscar-worthy. The tears, the trembling hands, the sheer desperation in her voice. I felt a fresh wave of nausea. This was the woman Liam had chosen. This master manipulator. We've already broken up, I said, my voice cold and flat, refusing to be drawn into her drama. The only reason I was here was to discuss the money Liam owes me. I'm sorry, she whimpered, not even bothering to deny the pregnancy test's likely origin. Liam's money, all of it is going to my treatments. So expensive. Please, Miss Alara, please just give us a little more time. There's no need to beg her, Zoe. Liam emerged from the coffee shop, his hair and shirt still damp from the water I'd thrown. He rushed to Zoe's side, scooping her into his arms protectively. He turned to me, his chin held high in a ridiculous parody of dignity. Bullying a woman who is seriously ill, he spat, his eyes blazing with self-righteous fury. Have you no shame at all, Alara? That was the final straw. Any lingering doubt, any microscopic fragment of sympathy I might have still harbored for his impossible situation, evaporated. They were a perfect match, united in their delusion and their victim narrative. I looked at them, a pathetic pile on the sidewalk, the cheating husband and his terminally ill pregnant mistress, and I felt nothing but a cold, clean contempt. We're done talking, I said, turning my back on them. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. I had originally considered just writing off the money, the cost of my freedom. But seeing them together, the united front of their manipulation, solidified my resolve. I would get every last penny back. I would make him accountable. Through a friend, I found a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer named Ms. Davies. I handed over all the evidence. The videos, the texts, the marriage certificate, the financial records. She listened with a steely expression, nodding occasionally. We'll file a civil suit for the return of all funds. It's a clear-cut case of fraud and breach of contract. Don't worry, Ms. Vance. We'll get what you're owed. The legal wheels were in motion. But there was another front that needed to be addressed. My family. I went home to my parents' house that weekend. The familiar, comforting smell of my mother's cooking and my father's old books should have been a balm, but my stomach was in knots. I had to tell them their future son-in-law was a bigamist. I sat them down at the kitchen table. My mother, ever perceptive, knew something was wrong immediately. Alara, sweetheart, what is it? You're white as a sheet. I took a deep breath and told them everything. The trip, Chloe's video, the confrontation at the new house, the marriage certificate, the texts, the meeting at the coffee shop, the pregnancy test, the sidewalk scene with Zoe. I laid it all out, my voice shaking by the end. My mother, a gentle high school English teacher, was so furious she began to tremble all over. She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. That little scoundrel, she cried, her vocabulary failing her in her rage. That wretched, lying, two-faced scoundrel. She repeated the word as if it were the worst insult she could possibly conceive. My father, a stoic history professor, remained seated. He slowly took off his reading glasses and polished them on his sweater, a familiar nervous tick. He was silent for a long time. He asked for Chloe's video and watched it on his tablet, his expression unreadable. Finally, he put his glasses back on and looked at me, his eyes filled with a deep, quiet pain. We can't just let this slide, Alara. My mother, still pacing, nodded vigorously. Thank goodness your father insisted on handwriting the wedding invitations himself and hadn't sent them out yet. Imagine having to explain this to every aunt and uncle. Liam didn't dare tell his parents about the marriage, my father said, his voice low and precise. So we'll do it for him. He turned to my mother. Eleanor, go and fetch the matchmaker. I blinked. Dad, why are you calling me Alara? And why do we need Aunt Lydia? My mother stopped pacing and came over, poking my forehead gently. You'll always be our little girl. She sighed. Aunt Lydia made the introduction. There's a protocol for these things. She needs to be involved. Aunt Lydia arrived within the hour. In my memory, she was a bubbly, laughter-filled woman who loved nothing more than a successful match. Today, her face was uncharacteristically stern, the lines around her mouth deeply etched. She sat upright on our living room sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Robert, Eleanor, she began, her voice heavy. I owe you an apology. I can't believe I introduced such an unreasonable young man into your family. The two kids only dated for a while, my father said, his tone firm. Even an engagement can be broken. But Liam Croft hid his actions, gave the wedding my daughter planned to another woman, and still expects her to wait for him. What kind of logic is that? Yes, Alara has been wronged, Aunt Lydia nodded, shooting me a sympathetic glance. Alara, don't you worry. I'll find you a much better man next time. Let's not talk about next times right now, my mother interjected, her anger still simmering. Lydia, what do you think we should do? Aunt Lydia looked nervous. How about I arrange a meeting with the Crofts? We can all sit down and talk this over like civilized people. My father shook his head slowly. Lydia, if Liam had made things clear with Alara from the start, a discussion might have been possible. But he didn't. He leaned forward, his gaze intent. I didn't call you here today to discuss things with the other side. The Vance family will not take this insult lying down. He stood up suddenly. I've already called my brothers and my nephews. Tomorrow, you will come with us to the Croft household. Aunt Lydia's face went pale. This is... Robert, we're all educated people. Surely we can't resort to violence. My father's smile was thin and cold. Don't worry. We won't take action unless it's absolutely necessary. The promise seemed to make Aunt Lydia even more nervous. She looked like she was about to be sick. The next day I understood her fear. I am an only child, but my father is the third of 5 brothers and my mother is the fourth of 6 sisters. The Vance family network was vast and fiercely protective. By 10 a.m. our house was full of uncles, aunts, and cousins. My eldest cousin's son, a lanky basketball player towering at nearly 2 meters, clapped me on the shoulder. Don't be scared, Aunt Alara. I'll protect you. My youngest uncle's son, a college student, showed up with a group of his rugby friends. Aunt Alara, he said with a grin, don't believe that crap about your life being over. A woman at 40 is in her prime. If you want, I can set you up with any of these guys. Despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but laugh. The love in the room was a tangible force, a stark contrast to the betrayal I'd experienced. Led by my stoic father and a visibly trembling Aunt Lydia, our family army, a procession of over 20 cars, drove in a solemn convoy to the Croft family home in the old steel mill district. My father, it turned out, was a brilliant strategist. Instead of heading straight to their door, he had my cousins fan out through the community, handing out professionally printed flyers to every neighbor. The Croft family of Steel Mill District shows noble character. Son marries his terminally ill first love. Fiancée, Ms. Alara Vance, suffers bitterly as all wedding preparations dress another's bride. A story of compassion and betrayal. Aunt Lydia held one of the flyers, her hand shaking. Robert, why must you go to such lengths? My father stared at the bold words. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, Lydia. We're just helping them air out their dirty laundry. By the time we reached the Crofts' modest home, a crowd of curious and gossiping neighbors had already gathered. The news had spread like wildfire. The Croft family, Liam's parents and his older sister Carla, were waiting at the door, their faces a mixture of confusion, anger, and dawning horror. They had clearly been ambushed. The street was packed with my relatives and their neighbors, all watching the unfolding drama. The showdown at their doorstep had begun. The Crofts' front yard felt like a stage, and we were the players in a tragedy none of us had auditioned for. The air hummed with the whispers of the gathered neighbors, a live audience to the utter humiliation of the Croft family. Liam's father, George Croft, a large man with the weary shoulders of a retired steelworker, stood protectively in front of his wife, Maureen. His face was flushed a deep, angry red. Liam's sister, Carla, stood just behind them, her arms crossed, her expression a mask of defensive belligerence. Aunt Lydia looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. Robert Vance, George Croft boomed, his voice trying to project authority but cracking with strain. What is the meaning of this? Bringing a mob to my home? Handing out these lies? He waved one of the flyers in the air as if it were a poisonous snake. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The quiet, steely calm he projected was far more intimidating. They're not lies, George. You should ask your son about the marriage certificate he obtained yesterday. You should ask him about the wedding he held at the Grand Imperial, using the venue, the dress, and the rings my daughter spent months choosing for her own wedding. The wedding you were supposedly helping to plan. The confusion on George and Maureen's faces was genuine. They hadn't known. Liam had kept them completely in the dark. Carla, however, shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my father's gaze. She'd known. Maureen Croft found her voice, a reedy, anxious thing. There must be a misunderstanding. Liam loves Alara. He's been so busy with work and this girl Zoe, she's sick. He's just being compassionate. Compassionate? My mother, Eleanor, spoke up, her voice shaking with suppressed fury. Is it compassionate to deceive my daughter? To send her abroad so he can marry another woman? To expect her to wait like a good little puppy while he plays house with his dying first love? Is that the compassion you taught him? How dare you? Carla Croft shrieked, unable to stay silent any longer. She pushed forward, pointing a finger at my mother. My brother is a good man. He's helping a poor sick girl. Your daughter is the heartless one, picking on someone who's about to die. It's a blessing for our family that a cold woman like her never married into it. The crowd gasped. Carla's vitriol was a gift. It instantly painted the Crofts as the villains. I felt a cold smile touch my lips. I stepped forward next to my mother. Yes, I said, nodding agreeably. The Crofts are truly noble and virtuous. So understanding. I let my gaze sweep over the interested neighbors before landing back on Carla. Carla, I heard your husband, David, was also very attentive at the wedding. Helping the bride with her dress, shielding her from drinks. I saw him in the video. He seemed very invested in fulfilling Zoe's dying wish too. The color drained from Carla's face. She hadn't known that. A ripple of excited murmuring went through the crowd. This was better than any soap opera. Wait, what? Carla stammered, her bravado vanishing. David was there? Oh, he was very much there, Chloe chimed in, holding up her phone. I have the footage. He followed Zoe around like a lost puppy. Looked like he was in agony over her condition. The tactic was brutal and effective. My uncle, never one to miss an opportunity, added fuel to the fire. Carla, I heard you and David were thinking of selling your house recently. Surely it wasn't to help pay for your brother's mistress's medical bills? The Croft family generosity truly knows no bounds. The neighbors, many of whom had old grievances with the sharp-tongued Carla, began to openly mock her. You're talking nonsense. Carla yelled, but her voice was losing its power. Carla, if you're so kind-hearted, my aunt added sarcastically, surely you won't mind when Zoe has the baby and you take it in? After all, your family is so compassionate. Better get a paternity test first, someone else from the crowd yelled. Might not be an act of kindness, might be an obligation. The focus had completely shifted from Liam's betrayal to the Crofts' own crumbling family drama. Carla's eyes widened in horror as the implications sank in. She turned on her husband, David, who had been trying to remain inconspicuous by the door, and lunged at him, her nails scratching at his face. You bastard! What did you do? How could you do this to me? The scene descended into chaos. The Crofts screaming at each other, the neighbors buzzing with gossip, my family standing in stoic, united silence. It was into this maelstrom that Liam finally arrived. He pushed through the crowd, his face a thundercloud of anger and confusion. In his hand he clutched the court summons my lawyer had served him that morning. He saw me and zeroed in, his expression one of profound disappointment, as if I were the one who had betrayed him. Elara, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. I already told you I'd marry you later. Why are you making such a scene? You even sued me. Are you really that heartless? I blinked, genuinely astonished by the depth of his delusion. Liam, where did you get the idea that I want to marry you? You're currently married. Talking to me like that is harassment. Once Zoe is gone, you'll just be a widower. A used-up, twice-married man. How dare you even think you're still in my league? The words were harsh, designed to wound. They did. He flinched as if I'd struck him. Don't say that. If you don't like it, I've made Zoe move out of the new house. It'll still be our home. I'll buy you a new wedding dress, a grander wedding. He was living in a complete fantasy. Before he could finish, his father, George, finally snapped. The humiliation, the neighbors' stares, the revelation about his son-in-law, and now his son's pathetic groveling. It was too much. He stepped forward and slapped Liam across the face with a crack that echoed in the sudden silence. Liam staggered back, his hand flying to his cheek, stunned. Dad, what are you doing? What am I doing? George Croft roared, his face purple with rage. I should be asking you. What have you been hiding from us? I raised you to be a decent man and this is what I get? A disloyal, unfilial wretch. I could kill you right now. Liam ducked as his father took another swing, trying to hide behind his mother. But Maureen Croft, her face a stone mask of disappointment, coldly stepped aside, even giving Liam a slight shove back toward his father's wrath. Enough, Dad. Liam finally yelled, blocking his father's arm. What did I even do wrong? Zoe has liver cancer. She only has 3 months left. I just wanted to fulfill her dying wish. Is that so terrible? You didn't do anything wrong? His mother finally spoke, her voice trembling with hurt. Did you tell us? Did you discuss it with the Vances? If you're in the right, why did you do it all in secret? You wouldn't have agreed. Liam argued, still defiant, still the victim in his own mind. None of you would have agreed. But she's dying. A few days, one dress, a few banquet tables. Was that too much to ask? George Croft held back his wife, his own anger seeming to drain away, replaced by a weary, profound shame. He turned his back on his son and faced my parents. He bowed deeply, a gesture of utter contrition. Robert Vance, he said, his voice thick with emotion. My family has wronged yours. I am throwing away all my pride not to ask your forgiveness, but to beg for a chance to make it up with a formal apology. Dad. Liam and Carla cried out in unison, horrified. George ignored them. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a sadness that felt genuine. Alaire, you've been wronged. Our family has failed you. Your engagement with Liam is cancelled. Do whatever you need to do. We won't stand in your way. Liam was aghast. Dad, she's taking me to court. Let her. George yelled, turning back to his son. Pay back what you owe. Compensate what you should. We've already spent our savings on your down payment. The money you owe Alara is your responsibility. If you can't pay it back and the police take you away, then go to jail. Liam stared, his worldview crumbling. Dad, what are you saying? I don't want to break off the engagement. Then go to jail, his father roared. You're committing bigamy. I'll report you to the police myself. If you're a man, you'll take responsibility for your actions. If you want to fulfill your first love's wish, then take care of her. You're married. Yet you stand here talking about another woman being your fiancé? The Vances would never want you. If you dare to pester Alara again, don't call me your father. I'll break your legs myself and take you to the police. Liam stood there, dazed and broken, finally realizing that his noble act had cost him everything. His fiancé, his friends, his family's respect, and his future. He was alone in the wreckage he had created. The Vance family, our point maid, turned and left the scene. The sunlight had done its work. The infection had been exposed. The rest was up to the courts. The months that followed the doorstep confrontation were a study in quiet recovery. I focused on work, on healing, on rebuilding a life that was solely my own. The civil suit against Liam proceeded smoothly. With the evidence we had, his lawyer had little room to maneuver. A settlement was reached, and the money, every penny of the wedding deposits and my half of the down payment, was returned to me. It was a financial restoration, but the emotional account remained forever in the red. I had closed the book on the Crofts. Or so I thought. News, however, has a way of trickling through the grapevine. It came initially from Ben, who had heard it from a friend who still worked with an old colleague of Liam's. It's about Liam, Ben said over coffee one day, his tone a mix of gossip and grim satisfaction. It's a mess. Remember how he kept saying Zoe only had 3 months to live? I nodded, sipping my latte. That had been 6 months ago. Well, she's still alive. Not exactly thriving, but alive. And get this, she's pregnant. And she's refusing to abort. Says the stress of the cancer treatments might harm the baby. I set my cup down, my appetite vanishing. The memory of the positive test on the cafe table flashed in my mind. But the Croft family is apparently having none of it, Ben continued. They're terrified. They think the baby will be born with cancer, or worse, that it'll be born and Zoe will die immediately, leaving Liam with a terminally ill newborn. The medical bills are already astronomical. Liam's working double shifts and playing nurse. Rumor has it his temper is shot. He's yelling at everyone at work. I felt a pang of something, not sympathy but a distant, clinical pity. He had chosen this. He had fought for this reality. And Zoe, Ben said, leaning closer, is apparently making the most of it. She's playing the dying wish card to the max, craving sushi and Kobe beef at 2 a.m., demanding designer clothes because she wants to feel pretty while she still can. Apparently they fight constantly. It's gotten physical. I winced. The situation was spiraling into something dark and tragic. Then it happened, Ben said, his voice dropping. During a huge argument he pushed her or she fell. Nobody knows for sure. But she fell. Hard. She lost the baby. They say it was fully formed. The news landed like a lead weight in my stomach. Despite everything, despite the hatred I had for them both, the loss of an innocent life was a horrifying outcome. But that's not even the wildest part, Ben said, his eyes wide. Are you ready for this? Liam's sister, Carla, the one who screamed at your mom, she stole the remains from the hospital. What? I gasped, recoiling in horror. She ran a paternity test, Ben said, slapping the table softly for emphasis. And it wasn't Liam's. The world seemed to tilt. Chloe, who was sitting with us, choked on her tea. What? Yeah, Ben said, savoring the shock he'd delivered. Carla caused a massive scene at the hospital. Screaming, crying. And Zoe, who was already weak from the miscarriage, was so enraged by the accusation that she had a massive hemorrhage. Before she died, she confessed. The room was silent. We were all leaning in, caught in the horrific gravity of the story. She confessed that the baby was her husband's, Ben finished. Her what? Chloe and I said in unison. Her husband. Zoe was married. She never divorced the guy. When she got sick, he apparently wanted nothing to do with her. So she came and found Liam, her first love, and spun him a tale. Liam the sucker thought she was doing it all for him. Turns out he was just a wallet and a placeholder. The revelation was so shocking, so sordid, it was almost impossible to process. Liam, who thought he was the hero in a tragic romance, had been the mark in a cruel con. So now, Ben concluded, Liam is demanding paternity tests from all of his old classmates, trying to figure out who the father really was. The whole Croft family is at war. Carla's husband admitted to the affair but refuses to leave Carla, and Carla, in some twisted loyalty, is defending him. Liam tried to confront the guy and Carla scratched Liam's face to protect her cheating husband. It's just a chaotic, disgusting mess. He looked at me, his expression sobering. Alara, thank goodness you got out. I don't think anyone in that family is going to come out of this sane. I nodded slowly, the news settling like a heavy fog. Thank goodness, I echoed, but the words felt hollow. I wasn't thankful for their suffering. I was thankful for my escape. Thankful for Chloe, who had been my rock. Thankful for my parents who had mobilized an army for me. Thankful for my friends who had stood as my witnesses. Thankful that I had held on to my sanity and my resolve through the worst of it. I had insisted on calling off the engagement. I had fought for my money. I had refused to be drawn back into his delusion. Because of that, I was free. The Croft family and their giant, messy, tragic trap were firmly in my past. Their absurdity was no longer my concern. My future, for the first time in a long time, felt truly my own. And it was bright. The finality of the settled lawsuit and the shocking, grim news about the Crofts created a strange sort of closure. It was as if a door I hadn't realized was still slightly ajar had been slammed shut and bolted forever. The story was over. There was no more drama to uncover, no more lies to unravel. There was only the quiet, steady work of moving on. I used the returned money as a down payment on a small, sunlit apartment that was entirely mine. No shared memories, no ghosts of a future that never was. Chloe helped me paint the walls a warm, optimistic yellow. It was a blank canvas. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion that came with more responsibility and a satisfying pay raise. The identity of Liam's fiancée, that I had held for so long, slowly faded, replaced by Alara, the project lead. It was a title I had earned myself. My social life, once intertwined with his, recalibrated. My friends and I grew closer, our bond forged in the fire of that terrible surprise party. We had dinners, went to movies, took a weekend trip to the coast. The conversations slowly stopped being about what Liam did, and started being about our lives, our dreams, our silly dating app misadventures. I even let my cousin set me up on a date with one of his rugby friends. A kind, funny architect who knew nothing of my past and was interested only in who I was now. It was awkward and wonderful and didn't lead to a second date, but it felt like a victory. I was back in the world. One Saturday, months after I'd moved into my new place, I was hanging a piece of art, a bold, abstract print I'd bought for myself, on the living room wall. Chloe was there, holding a level and criticizing my crooked eye. Left. Oh, your other left. Good grief, woman, how did you survive without me? I laughed, stepping back to admire the slightly crooked but happily hung painting. I have no idea. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a message from an unknown number. A cold finger of dread traced my spine, a leftover instinct from the Liam days. I picked it up cautiously. It wasn't Liam. It was George Croft, Liam's father. Alara, the message read. I know I have no right to contact you. I won't bother you again after this. I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart that I am sorry. For everything. What my son did to you is unforgivable. The way we reacted that day was shameful. You were always too good for our family. I am glad to hear you are doing well. Please be happy. George. I read the message twice, a complex swirl of emotions rising in my chest. Sadness, pity, and a faint sense of peace. The apology changed nothing, but it was a punctuation mark on the story. An endnote of accountability from the one person in that family who seemed to have any left. I showed the phone to Chloe. She read it and sighed. Well, better late than never, I suppose. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I simply deleted the message. His guilt was not my burden to carry. Later that afternoon, I found myself standing in front of the Mori Art Museum in the city, not the one in Tokyo. They were hosting a different exhibition. I bought a ticket and went in alone. I wandered through the galleries, taking my time, listening to the quiet echo of footsteps on polished floors. I stopped in front of a large, tumultuous painting, all swirling dark colors and a single defiant streak of gold cutting through the center. I must have been staring at it for a long time because a voice next to me said, "It's like the calm after the storm, isn't it? The gold part." I turned. The man was around my age with kind eyes and a faint smile. He wasn't trying to hit on me, he was just making an observation. I looked back at the painting, seeing it through his words. The dark chaos, the single strong line of light. "Yes," I said, smiling. "Yes, it is." We talked about the art for a few minutes, then went our separate ways. It was a small, meaningless interaction, but it felt significant. I was no longer the woman who had been betrayed. I was just a woman at a museum talking about a painting she liked. I had gone to Tokyo with Liam's shadow beside me, even in his absence. I had seen the art through the lens of our shared future. Now I was seeing it through my own eyes. I left the museum as the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the plaza. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the museum facade, not to send to anyone but just for me. A memory of a good afternoon. Then I called Chloe. "Hey," I said. "I'm done here. There's a new Thai place that just opened a few blocks away. I'm buying. Feel like being my taste tester." "Is the sky blue?" she replied without hesitation. "Send me the address. I'll be there in 20. I stood there for a moment, watching people hurry home to their families, their partners, their lives. The sharp pain was gone. The hollow ache had faded. In its place was a steady, resilient sense of self. The past was a lesson, not a life sentence. I turned my face towards the restaurant, towards my friend, towards my future, and started walking. The canvas was blank and the colors were all mine to choose. The end.